Okay, we're recording. Please go ahead.
So good morning. It is Thursday, February 19th. It is 10:01 a.m. and I'm calling this regular meeting of the Town Services and Outreach Committee to order. We have a quorum, and in a moment I'm going to check and make sure that everybody can be heard. According to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, extended through June 30, 2027, it gives public bodies the ability to hold meetings remotely. This meeting is accessible in real time via Zoom and by phone, and it is being recorded. Just to check and make sure everybody can be heard, I'm just going to look at my screen here. Andy,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes, I'm
okay,
sorry. I,
that's all right. You're good. We can hear you. And I don't see Hala yet.
I'm here.
Uh, oh, you're here, Hala. Thank you. So Councilor
Present.
Lord is here.
Yes.
And of course, I'm here. We also have two attendees, two guests. Jim Pristrang. If you just let us know that you can be heard and hear.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, and Angela.
Hello, thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. First practical question, is Paul joining us this morning? Because we have some town manager appointments,
Here.
which is actually, oh, Paul, good morning. So Paul
Good
is
morning.
also with us. Thank you. Um, all right. Um, let's take a look and see if we have any public present, because the first item on the agenda is public comment. And we do have one attendee. So at
Oh.
this, I'm sorry.
Can we bring Sam in?
Samantha Griffin. A surprise guest. This is great. Yes, could we bring
I-
Sam in?
I tried. Okay, here we go.
All right, so Sam is attending. Great. So we also have Samantha Giffen, who is our communications person and a key part of our strategy to communicate with the public. I see no attendees, so for the moment, we'll pass over public comment. If attendees that come later, we may return to that item on the agenda. Just a quick note about the agenda. I'd like to start with town manager appointments. If we could, that'll take a few minutes. So if our guests can be patient with us, we will work through that. First, item number 4 is the discussion for which we have a number of guests present this morning. I'd like to give that about an hour to about 11:15 if we can. We'll see how it goes. And then the final major item is to review the charge, and that should take about 30 to 40 minutes, I hope. So that's sort of the general sketch. And so if it's okay with the committee, just a quick housekeeping question. Were people able to access the materials for this meeting, both either, I put them on SharePoint. Did anyone besides me go to SharePoint? We have at least one? Okay. All right. So it was there and you could access it. Okay, good. And I assume the rest.
I'm still unable to access SharePoint, so I had to go through the website.
Okay. So we maybe
Andy,
get.
Andy, let's chat offline and I can show you how to get in. You should have permission.
Great. Okay, thanks.
So I guess it's just a curiosity question. Did anyone else access SharePoint and were they able to get the materials? Because I put them there and I accessed them. Okay, good. All right. So it does work. All right.
Pam is
Um,
saying no.
Pam is saying no, and I'm not sure. I think you've had some communication with her. And again, I think maybe offline if the two of you can
Uh-huh.
communicate because Jennifer and I have no problem, it seems, getting in there. Also, they are available, as we know, on the town website for the meeting, and you can also access them that way. But I have made a solemn promise to make sure that they are always available on SharePoint, and as soon as I can get them up there, and I will communicate with you when they get put up. You can always reach out to me if you're looking for materials. You shouldn't be shy about that. So that's where we're at. Okay, I don't see any other questions related to that sort of housekeeping. So Paul, if you would, we will go to town manager appointments and the first set of appointments, Cable Television Advisory Committee. If
Great,
you would
thank
like
you.
to go ahead.
So the Cable Television Advisory Committee is not a permanent committee. It's a temporary committee that works on a specific process of renewing our license with Comcast, which happens once every 10 years. So the people who will be appointing and ask for your support is Peter Barrick of 87 Woodlot Road, Fred Sivian of High Point Drive, John Millis of Northampton Road, and Brianna Sunrid of Flat Hills Road. And then the fifth person is Rachel Figueroa Smith, who is not a town resident, would require the council to approve, but she is the executive director of Amherst Media. So she has a lot of subject area expertise, and also she happens to serve on the Pelham School Committee, which, school committees are also a vital part of what we negotiate with with Comcast for, because we really negotiate around PEG, which is public education and government usage. And then a non-voting member is Sean Hannon, who's our director of IT. So I can go through each one of them. So Mr. Barrick he said he's a longtime customer of Comcast, which is harder to find these days because a lot of people have cut the cord. He was the former dean of faculty and provost at Mount Holyoke College, and he had IT under him, and he really is concerned about Comcast's response and their ability to deliver good customer service, and that's an ideal thing for us to talk about with Comcast in this process. Mr. Sivian was interested in being involved in town. He's relatively new to town, but he lived in Dedham, I think it was, previously, and was highly involved in all kinds of different committees, from finance committee to the school committee to conservation. He also worked for DEP, so he's very comfortable working in a regulatory environment, and understands how those types of things work. John Millis is a student at Amherst College. He's in pre-law, and his interest is in how private interests and public good sort of intersect, and he's said he could bring a lot of sort of reviewing information, studying things and things like that. And this fits in with since it's a short-term committee, it fits in with what his interests are and could help the town. Brianna Sudrid, you all know, she was our communications person previously. She now works for the Collins Center at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. She was eager to stay involved with the town, and this is one of the ways that she can be involved. She previously served on the Amherst Media Board as the town's representative, and she has a lot of experience both in the city of Worcester and in Amherst with IT things. And Rachel Figueroa Smith, I mentioned earlier, is the executive director of Amherst Media. So those are the appointments for the Cable Television Advisory Committee.
Great, Paul. Thank you. Questions for the manager on these appointments? I see no hands. Am I missing anybody? I have a question, Paul, which is really broader and maybe not appropriate for here, but for the council. But I'm wondering whether this committee will also discuss the future of cable. And as you mentioned, I think in your remarks earlier, we're seeing that it's becoming less and less used. Is that something that will be discussed, or is it pretty much?
Yeah, because it is a 10-year contract that we usually typically go for a 10-year contract because that's what the state law provides, and Comcast always wants to do a 10-year contract. You have to look out 10 years, but when we negotiated this 10 years ago, the world was way different than it is today. And in fact, I think one of the challenges we have in looking at other communities is that Comcast is saying it's not very valuable to us as much anymore. So we don't want to give you the amount of capital that we gave you last time. And that's where their starting point is going to be. And we're going to say we have greater needs and things like that. So I think it's determining the needs. And the important thing for us is really, it's about cable television. It's not about internet access. And so it's really, internet is a separate product. It's a separate delivery system. And so we won't be talking about internet access, which I think is a high level. It's what most people are concerned about now. It's really about cable television.
Andy?
Yeah, I noticed that the school committee meetings are on cable and the council meetings are on Zoom. And is that also cable? I guess that's Amherst Media also, right?
Yes.
So for live coverage, people are watching that either. Is it through cable always, or is it through
So for town council meetings, you can watch on Zoom, you can watch on YouTube, or you can watch on cable television.
And school committee is different.
They use Google Meets, so I'm not sure how, I don't know what, Amherst Media does broadcast them. They take the feed that comes out of the meetings. It used to be they would Amherst Media would come into town hall. They had a little closet with all their equipment on it. They would have,
Yeah.
or if you were
Hang
meeting
on
on
the
the first
wall.
floor, yeah, and yeah, exactly. Where they would set up their equipment in the first floor meeting room when the finance committee was meeting. Now they simply take the feed that Athena puts together and they rebroadcast that. And you'll hear at the beginning of every council meeting, the president asks, "Is Amherst Media ready?" And Athena confirms that they are receiving the feed and they're able to rebroadcast it.
Yeah, it seems like the future is not so much with cable broadcasting as it is with the internet. So.
And I think that's my question, Paul. And again, it's maybe not fair at this point, but is cutting the cord even a possibility? Have other towns and cities, quote unquote, cut the cord? Is that something that's even conceivable? Athena has her hand up, so go ahead, Athena.
I think she's going to reprimand us.
Reprimand me, Paul. You're not going to be reprimanded. Yes.
Yep, you're
Yes,
all
Athena.
you're all in trouble. You're looking at the appointments, not the purpose of the committee. Sorry.
All right. So unless there are further questions for the manager, once my knuckles recover, I'm going to make a motion that TSO recommend to the town council that it approve the following appointments to the Cable Television Advisory Committee for terms to expire December 31st, 2026. Peter Barrick, Frederick Sivian, John Milas, Brianna Sunrid, Rachel Figura-Smith, and as a non-voting member, Sean Hannon. Is there a second?
Second.
And so Jennifer has seconded. Thank you, Jennifer. Unless there's further discussion, I'm going to move immediately to a vote. And Jennifer, you're on my screen first. I'll begin with you.
Yes.
And Andy?
Yes.
And Pam?
Yes.
And Hala? Councilor Lloyd?
Aye. Aye.
And the chair is an aye. And so it's unanimous 5-0 for this set of appointments.
Thank you. So the next one is the Transportation and Parking Commission. This is not the full committee. These are the pre-designated slots. And so for each one, it is the actual department head who's representing the town. That would be the Police Chief Gabe Ting, Superintendent of Public Works Guilford Mooring, Economic Planning Economic Development Director Jeff Bagg, Councilors Sam McLeod and Councilor George Ryan that were both recommended by the council. And then the Commission for Persons with Disabilities recommended Ian Rodewald to serve on behalf of them. So these are their appointments. And I put in, when under the charter, when you create a new committee, you're supposed to have staggered terms for members. So I tried to stagger the terms a little bit to account for, so I could comply with the charter. And I put the councilor's terms as ending at the end of the next council term. It's a little bit off because it's not June 30th, but I thought it didn't make sense to go to June 30th and then have to replace them.
Questions for the manager on these appointments? I see no hands.
Pam has her hand
Pam
up.
has her hand
Oh,
up.
Pam, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the
Go ahead,
question,
please.
excuse me, the question I have is why do you feel you have to stagger these, since these are staff? Why are you feeling a need to stagger these?
The charter says when you create a new committee, you have to have staggered terms.
But we could stagger the terms of the public that end up getting on the committees.
I will
As the
stagger those as
staggering.
well. I will stagger
Okay.
those as well because there'll be
Okay.
3 people coming into the public. They'll each get, one will get 1-year term, one will get 2-year terms, one will get 3-year terms.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I think,
Any other questions or comments? I see Andy has his
Andy.
hand. Andy, please.
Yeah, this is a lot of heavy duty staff members on this committee. Is that I'm concerned a little bit about their time. I understand. I got designee. I guess that works. So maybe you, instead of Jeff Bag, you have another planner or staffer or something, right?
No, well, when I talked with them, I asked the department heads to participate at the beginning, at least for the committee, to help set up the standards and protocols and understand what the flavor of the committee. And I think for the first 6 months to a year, I would really like the department heads to be there so they really understand what if they would like someone else to serve, they could do that. But I want them to be there at the beginning to help form it. And most likely they will at some point ask to have someone designated in their stead.
I see no other comments. I was particularly impressed by the counselor appointments. I thought those were excellent. I think you did a good job there, Paul. We'll see what the council thinks about that. But so unless I see any other, I'm going to make a motion that TSO recommend that the town council approve the following appointments to the Transportation and Parking Commission. Gabriel Ting, Police Chief, for a term to expire June 30, 2027. Jeff Bag, Director of Planning and Economic Development, for a term to expire June 30, 2028. Ian Rodewald, member of the Commission for, Ian Rodewald, member of the Commission for Persons with Disabilities, for a term to expire June 30, 2027. And Councillor Sam McLeod and Councillor George Ryan, for terms to expire January 3rd, 2028. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Churchill seconds. Thank you. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. If there's no further comment, I'm going to move directly to a vote. And so Andy Churchill,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and Hala,
Aye.
and the chair is an aye as well. So again, it's unanimous 5-0 to recommend these appointments to the council. So Paul, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is review and discussion of the town board and committee process. And this is in light of the 2026 manager goals, which has tasked us with working with the manager to, quote, develop ways to streamline and improve the recruiting, vetting, selection, and onboarding of community volunteers who serve on the town's boards and committees. The process should include exploring ways the town might shrink the number of boards and committees. So I'd like to give this about an hour, and we'll see how the discussion goes. And my thought was to actually, I had recommended to committee members that they focus. We got a large number of materials, courtesy of Angela, thank you very much. And I recommended that that committee members start their reading with her memo to the GSO committee. And I think there were two other items that I had asked you to look at, and I was going to kind of use those as a way to frame the discussion. The first item deals with the matter of basically the whole process. It's really a process question. And so I don't know if you have her memo close by, but I'm going to have it close by for myself. And I want to just begin by noting something. I took some time to try and get a sense of where we stand with these bodies. And I came up with 32 separate bodies that the town manager makes appointments to. And that's 185 appointments. And currently, according to the numbers that Angela shared with us, there are 30 vacancies and a potential 20 impending vacancies. So just to give you a sense of the scale. But I thought we'd start first. I don't think we need to go through the memo, but I wonder if Angela and could begin to just, if you have questions for her in terms of the whole interview and appointment process. In the first part of her memo, she gives us some data herself in terms of committee appointments that are actual over the last couple of years. And then she describes in some great detail the process, how interviews are done, CAFs, etc. So I wanted to start with that on the process, the interviews, the CAFs, communicating with applicants, and the follow-up process. Angela, I don't know if there's any remarks either you or Jim would like to make to start, but I'm also, yeah.
Sure. So thanks for the invitation. And I think one of the things I forgot to mention in my sharing of information with all of you is that in the past kind of 18 months, I've had meetings with staff liaisons and I've opened it up to all staff liaisons. And it's kind of an overview of expectations and a sharing on the staff side of best practices and what's working and what's not working. And a reminder that at the beginning of Zoom meetings, we need to read aloud the suspension of open meeting law and sharing the script for that with all of those staff liaisons. And then it kind of evolved into a discussion of um, comportment during meetings and how to best follow best practices and encourage good behavior or better behavior. And then it really drilled down on the specifics of public comment and what should and can't be done during public comment. And then in addition to that, I hosted an online version and an in-person version for new members and chairs. I think it was August or September of last fall. And it was more of a government 101, kind of this is the town you live in, this is where your new responsibilities fit into our town government. And these are the expectations when you show up for a meeting, show up early or show up on time, be prepared, read the materials. It's kind of a nuts and bolts overview of what it means to be a special municipal employee.
So questions for Angela or for Jim about the memo and about this process? And I see, I think at least one hand up at the moment, Andy Churchill.
Yeah, I found the memo was useful for the process, and then I also thought that the reappointment season 2026 gave a more of a level of detail of really what the expectation, the number of vacancies, and then some suggestions about ideas that maybe this committee could be merged with that one or whatever. So I'm wondering what the relation, if you want to talk at all about the relationship between the reappointment season list and the the memo on appointments.
Can you be a little bit more specific? What are you looking for? Like the time commitment piece or the how the two intersect?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to know what the process was, I think, but we also, I think the deeper question was, do we have too many committees, and how do we, what kind of burden does this put on you guys to staff these, and how do we know that they're being effective or that they're connected to the system in the right way? So I don't know how. Yeah, there's sort of there's the process, and are people appropriately being notified of if they're on or off a committee or whatever. And then there's sort of the framework of committees. And as George mentioned, part of the charge on the discussion was think about whether we can have less committees. So, part of that is, are we having trouble getting people? Is that a process problem, or is that a structure problem? I don't know how to have the whole discussion, but I don't know if you want to segment it with what is the process and then is it working? But
Sure. So I think one of the things we hear most often, and I hear it all the time when I'm tabling or if I'm out at a public event, is I put in a calf like 3 months ago. Why haven't you called me? Right? People want immediate action when they're stepping up to volunteer. And so the reality is I went in and changed the reply, the auto reply in our system so that when people send in a calf, it's like, when we are experiencing a lack of quorum, or when there's a noticeable vacancy, or when it's reappointment season, we will reach out to you and we will notify you of upcoming interviews. I mean, the conversation about whether or not it's difficult to find volunteers, for example, John Mielis, who's just been appointed to the Cable Advisory Committee, he is a first gen Amherst College kid who just transferred in, I think, from a Mid-Atlantic community college. He's new to town. He's looking for ways to integrate himself into the community. He's looking for ways to volunteer. He's always volunteered through high school. He was really active in his community's senior center. He wanted to try something new. I met him for coffee. We had a long conversation. And then after sitting with him for a bit, it was like, you know what? Like this actually might really appeal to him. It's not what he signed up for. He really wanted to be on Affordable Housing Trust, as do most college kids. And when the cable thing came up, I called him and I said, John, I know you're really wanting to get off campus. I know you're really wanting to connect with community. Would you be interested in this? And he jumped for it. Like he was like, absolutely. Like put my name on the list. I want to be interviewed. So it was kind of fortuitous. It doesn't always work that way, but when we have people who put general interest and we're struggling for numbers on, I don't know, Council on Aging or Human Rights Commission, I call the general interest people and I say, this isn't what you signed up for, but might you be interested in an interview? So sometimes it kind of works backdoor that way. Is it a lot of time? I don't have a handle on that because it's part of the job that I inherited. So it seems like part of my job.
Pam and then Paul. Pam, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm not used to having myself muted. Paul had his hand up first.
And Paul, if you wish to make a comment, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I will attest that it's a lot of work. Angela puts a lot of work into sort of talking to people, making sure they're knowing what they're getting into, and sort of helping them to get to the right committee. The other thing that takes an enormous amount of work and why sometimes it takes longer is that we try to be efficient with, especially with our staff and with the Residents Advisory Committee, because organizing these things, finding a time when everybody can participate. If you're asking someone to donate their time, like Jim, you say, well, we don't want to have 3 different times during the week for you to interview someone. We're trying to bunch them together. So can you give us an hour today to interview folks? So that's usually how, and we try to not, if there's just one vacancy, if the committee's not experiencing a real need, we probably hold on that until we get to a point where it's really needed. So we try to prioritize our time. It just takes time. All these interviews, there's dozens and dozens of interviews, and it takes time especially for Angela, but for everybody, it takes time. Why do we have so many committees? I think this is a vestige of being in the town form of government. In a town form of government, there were always committees set up for everything. In a city form of government, you won't see as many committees. It really sort of is more staff centric and town council or city council centric. It works more formally that way. And so I think that this town has it's a nice way for people to be involved in government. So people feel more connected to their government if they can serve on a committee. So it's a positive thing. Are there too many committees? There's a lot of committees. Are there some that we can get rid of? It's hard to get rid of committees. Once they're set up, there's people who like it. It's sometimes their lifeblood. But that being said, but it's very few. And sometimes we talk about merging committees, and Angela's put a lot of work into trying to merge a couple of them, and there's usually barriers to that. It's either turf or it's I don't want to do what that committee does. I signed up for this committee. But I think we could be more aggressive about pushing some of these things. Like we have 2 different historical committees. We have 2 different arts committees. There's some committees that exist because of the way, like the Munson Building Committee, I think under the terms of the will or something like that, it's in there saying there shall be a committee that oversees the building, even though they seldom meet. It really is staff that manages that building. So there's some committees that have to exist. There's some committees that stop existing, like the Agricultural Commission. We couldn't find people to serve on it because it didn't really have a mission anymore, and people didn't want to just show up and talk. So I think we can trim it down a little bit, but I think there's a lot of interest in lots of different things, So I think you won't knock it down a whole lot in terms of committees.
Pam, go ahead.
Thanks. And I just especially wanted to say thanks to Jim Pistrang for all the the time on the committees. I know Meg Gage has also put in a lot of time. So all of this obviously is going on behind the scenes, and it just comes up as the recommendations from TSO to the council. Thank you. In going through the list, there are several, as you said, the Agriculture Committee, Amherst Redevelopment Authority, which, I was the last person appointed to, is completely defunct. I guess we could go through that list and start to eliminate and officially pronounce them dead on arrival so that we can at least have an official list of active committees. Let's see, what was I going to say? Okay, back now to the process. And you talked about trying to find time for the interviews. It has actually been very interesting from a council perspective. Jennifer and I are both on CRC, and we have had the pleasure and the burden of interviewing people for well, Andy is too, but hasn't gone through the process of interviewing people for planning board and CBA. Those are joint interviews so that we get everybody in the room at the same time, and the same set of questions is asked to each of them. It seems that this committee doesn't really have set questions. It just has a set process. Having people in the room, if you will, in the Zoom room together, actually is interesting because it people sort of feed off each other and brings out information that they might not have thought to mention on their own. And so perhaps instead of, I guess it would still take an hour, or maybe it would take less, but you could probably get through the process a little quicker if you did them all at once. That's just a thought. And a thanks to Angela, actually, too, for compiling all this information. One of the things that struck me is that there is a whole lot of feedback, which again, I appreciate because Jennifer and I handled that for ZBA, all of the coordination with people who have submitted a CAF, who are scheduled for an interview, and then have been responded to when they weren't selected. It looks like Paul's name is on a lot of those tasks. And I just wonder if maybe, reaching out to people who were interviewed but not selected, or sometimes notifying those people they've been selected, they'll be receiving their paperwork. Is that something that perhaps Angela could take on more of so that it's not Paul per se? I'll stop there.
Jennifer?
So I don't know if I should get to this later in the meeting, if you were more looking at, do we need all these committees? How do we interview? But my concern has also been that I don't understand how the council appointed committees are so public and the town manager appointed committees are not public at all. So I'm concerned that there are people that always apply for committees that are never selected. And it's kind of all happens under the radar. And this is not anything personal to the position, to the person in the town manager's position. It's just the way it's structured. We're told that. So I would like to explore that process. How when town council appointed committees, everything is public. The interviews, when we debrief, that's also, it all happens, in a public Zoom meeting. And I'm concerned that in the town manager appointed committees, if someone is not interviewed or not selected, there's no explanation is even required. So I think there's something inherently flawed about that process. And that maybe we'll have a whole different separate meeting about that. But I think that's something that TSO should address. I'd like to see us have a conversation about that. Thanks.
Let Paul respond to that.
Yeah, so the difference is you're a public body, I am not. When a public body is interviewing, like this meeting, it's a public because we're having a conversation. There's a public body and there's a quorum of you. The council can only act as in a quorum. I do not need a quorum to act, and under the charter, I am the appointing authority. So there's no requirement for me to make any of the public other than the appointments. So, and I don't for any appointments that I make, for a lot of very good reasons, including ensuring that the applicant pool stays robust, and for whether it's a department head that you have the ability to appoint, or if it's a member of a committee. So, and you don't have a choice but to be public unless you delegate it to one person, which you could do. Otherwise, everything you do must be in public. Whereas, for efficiency, but also just for respect for the people who are involved. And so what the council's role is to act on the appointments of the town manager. It's not to make the selection, it's to say yes or no to the appointments that you have.
Thank you, Paul. Andy, you're next, and then Jim.
Yeah, I was just going to say that going back to when I was on the Charter Commission, the council got the planning board and the ZBA because those were felt to be decision-making bodies that were particularly people were particularly interested in having them accountable to the representatives of the voters. Other committees are seen as more as advisory to the town manager and helping the staff get the work of the town done. And so they're tasked with appointing, committees with the expertise and functionality that will help them get the work of the town done. And then the council has the ability to reject them if they don't like the ones that are picked. But it was seen as a different role, that we have staff and we have committees that are representing, giving advice to the staff from the public. And then we have a couple of committees that were felt to be more of a public role and publicly interested, and therefore that's why the ones that the council appoints were given to the council. Otherwise, they would have all been given to the manager in many cases.
Jim?
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks, Pam, for your nice little shout out. But really, Angela's the one who puts in all the work, and our committee doesn't do all that much. We've had a number of conversations within our Residents Advisory Committee over the years about the public versus private aspect of candidates for these committees. And we also did a pretty significant survey back, 3 or 4, even more years ago. And a pretty strong, not consensus exactly, but a significant majority of candidates said they vastly preferred the anonymity of their applications and didn't want their candidacy to be public before they're put on a committee. And in fact, many said that they wouldn't have applied to be on a committee if the application was public. They kind of wanted to keep it private until they were on the committee and then feel okay about being public once they're there. So this is something we talked about a significant amount, and our RAC group brings it up, every year or so. And, I know with the current group, we've discussed and all agree that we're happy with the way the process is in terms of the private nature of the candidates. And this goes a little into, essentially, the concept of having an hour-long session with all the candidates that we have grouped at once, as opposed to the separate 15-minute interviews. And I can see some pros to that. That also gets into a little bit of the preferred anonymous nature of the candidates a little bit. And there's also a flaw in that it's never all the candidates for a board. It's just the 2 or 3 that we've sort of collected at that point in time. It's still something interesting to consider, and probably I'll bring it up at the next RAC meeting just to talk about what we think the pros and cons of having grouped interviews like that would be. I don't know if that would be more or less work for Angela that way, probably different and hopefully not more, but that's something else to consider there. That's all for now.
Thank you, Jim. Angela, I'm going to go to you and then to Jennifer. Angela?
So I wanted to go back to the outreach in terms of selections. Like ultimately, because of the way the home rule charter is written, it is Paul's selection. It's not my selection. And I'm happy to reach out to candidates if that's something he wants to delegate to me. But we always walk this fine line between being the town of Amherst and the town of Amherst that's also the city of Amherst. And I think the outreach from the town manager directly to the candidate walks that fine line. I will also say that many, many times when people aren't selected, I make a follow-up phone call and say, I noticed that you weren't selected. I think you might be a really strong candidate for this, or I think you might be a really great candidate for the next thing. But then I also need to let you know that we have people apply for our boards and committees from all over the valley and all over the country. Like when we put the shout out for reparations out there, we had people from Washington, D.C. apply. We had people from the state of Washington apply. And I have to go in and check the street address and make sure that it's Amherst, Massachusetts. And I do that before I start putting together all of these interviews. So we also have people who don't want to accept the charge of the group. So, for example, not too long ago, we had a gentleman who wanted to join the Board of Assessors because he wanted to rewrite how we do property taxes in the town of Amherst. And I had to explain to him that's really not what the Board of Assessors does. And he didn't want to accept that. And we do interview everyone who applies. So when it came down to the day of the interviews, the day before, I always send out a reminder. And he called me and he said, well, how do you think it's going to go? And I said, well, if you're really bent on changing our tax policies and our tax bylaws and the way that we tax properties, I'm going to tell you this will be a huge waste of your time. So he ended up withdrawing from the invitation to interview. But we have people who want to, do your job as counselors, and they think that they can do that through these volunteer boards and committees. And I have to be the person to explain the charges and send the charges to everyone.
Jennifer, thank you.
I think Pam had her hand up first, so I'll come back.
Actually, no, but
No, okay. I mean, I've spoken. No, I just, I mean, I've said this before. I think, in response to Andy, that the charter has TSO confirming the appointments. I mean, that's very performative. I know when I've questioned it, being on TSO before, I've questioned an appointment and I'm told it's, the town manager's decision. And we don't know who else has applied to know if we've gotten the best candidates. I mean, I really do feel like the role of TSO in effect is a rubber stamp role. So yeah, that's just, and I don't know what we do. I know people that have applied to multiple committees that are very active in town affairs that are never appointed and nobody knows that they've even applied. So I think there's some flaws in the process, and what I keep being told is there's really nothing we can do about that. But I feel like I need to keep raising, because I think it's interesting to hear what Jim said, that I hadn't realized that there was any outreach to the community about making the CAFs in any way public. But there is a definite concern in the community that the process is not very transparent, and that some people feel they will never be appointed to a committee because of the positions that they have, or they're very outspoken. So I think we should, that's a perception that's very much, I hear that talked about a lot in the community. And I'm not sure what, I think, well, I shouldn't say what, I think we can do something about it. I don't, know if there's the will to do that. And I'm not trying to be critical of any individuals. I think it's just I think the process is, I mean, I know there will always be subjectivity, but my concern is the subjectivity makes it so the government is not as open to, all participants, all those in the community who would like to participate.
Okay. Councilor Lord has her hand up. She's not spoken yet. So Pam, if it's okay, I'd like to go to Councilor Lord and then to you. Councilor Lord, please.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
It's a little, we can hear you. It's a little loud, but go ahead and we'll go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to assume you can. Thank you, Jim, for mentioning that part about some of the community wants it anonymous, because I know there is a rejection sensitivity, so if everybody knows you applied and they're excited for you and then you didn't get chosen, just there's a lot of reasons why people want it private. And so I appreciate lifting that part up. And also to Councilor Cobb's part, Jennifer, I question why it's brought before TSO as well. If it's just, why not just bring all the appointments to the whole council, since that's where we make the official vote? Maybe this was to ask questions and vet confusion, but maybe it's better to do that in the whole council, not to add a whole bunch of work for us. But yeah, I just wanted to lift those two things up. And apologize that I'm going to be leaving early to perform at the Black History Celebration at the Amherst Survival Center. It's a great lunch. I invite people to come down and celebrate from 12 to 1. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pam, please.
Sure. I wanted to harken back to, it was one of the things, I think it was one of the things on a council topic, but it was restructuring multi-member body boards that are advisory to the town manager. And I wonder, Paul, if you can remind us. It was, and I'm sorry, I was trying to look through the goals and find it, but what is actually an advisory committee to you? It seems like almost everything is sort of an advisory to the town manager. Can you differentiate between what is actually advisory and what is not?
Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think so some committees have power that's given to it through a bylaw or a state law. There are committees that are created by the council that advise the council, that could advise the council, I guess. And then it's our basic form of government. We have the legislature, which is what the town council is, and we have the executive, which is the town manager. In other cities, it's the mayor. So it's a similar kind of setup as all cities have. It's just some cities have different size councils, things like that. And in terms of it's just a matter of what their charge is, if they have actual decision making. So you just created a transportation and parking commission, and you delegated some actual decision making to that committee that you're appointing, and then there's some things that you didn't delegate. So they actually have some decision making authority for certain things, and you prescribed what they can, and you can take that away anytime you want. There are other things like planning board and zoning board that have authority vested in it by state law. If its committee doesn't have any actual decision-making authority, then it's more advisory. So like the recreation committee doesn't have authority to make decisions. It really works with it's an advisory committee as much to the recreation director as more than me. Actually, I don't meet with them. So I think that's the differentiation between the two.
Actually, it occurred to me it was the charter review that suggests, like, I was trying to think, where did that come from? But it talked about restructuring. I think it was restructuring advisory. Now I've got to go look that up. Maybe Andy, can you remind me what the suggestion was to review maybe the structure of advisory committees? Sorry, I'm really sorry. That was a really poorly formed question.
I think that some of what we're doing today in a fits and starts is related to this, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But I have, Andy, you've been asked a question. Councilor Lord, I think your hand is a residual hand. But if it stays up, I will call on you in just a moment. Andy, please go ahead.
Yeah, in the charter review, we did hear a fair amount about just people saying they felt like they were in limbo for a while, for kind of a long time, and so they didn't know whether they were or weren't appointed, or they assumed they weren't appointed, but they hadn't heard. And I don't know if that's been improved or if that's isolated experiences or what. And then as far as Pam's question, there were several suggestions around committees. One was that we look at whether we have too many, and another, others were sort of around that thing that we heard about, about that, the kind of, the notification and the whether they should be public or not. And so those are in the beyond the charter section of the review. As far as people who apply multiple times and don't get appointed, I assume that when you're trying to staff committees, you're looking to make functional committees, and I think there are roles for advocates in the community, there are roles for committee members, and there are roles for elected representatives, and there are roles for staff, and there may be some people who are better suited to be advocates than to be external advocates than to be committee members. In some cases, it just may not be a functional committee with some people on it. That if I were picking committees, that's something that I would be considering. Are you going to have the chemistry that's going to make this thing functional or not? It's a tough balance, and you certainly don't want to shut out viewpoints, but there's different roles for advocates and committee members and elected representatives and staff, and sometimes people fit in better in one box than another. At least that's my personal opinion.
Jennifer.
Yeah. Well, I would say one person's advocates, another person's expert. That's very subjective. But I also, so I think Andy I think that sort of captured that. That's a real concern. But I also, in terms of Pam's question about, like, I'm thinking of a committee that has to exist because it's state mandated would be like the local historic district commission. And Paul had mentioned, like, we have a historical commission and a local historic district commission. They couldn't be merged. I mean, it seems the local historic district commission has to do what it has to do, which is different, right, from the historical commission.
I think there's some questions, if we get to it today, I don't know if we will, that I think we could get, either we could do some work on or we get some clarity. Paul may have some clarity to offer in a second. But when we talk about the possibility of combining bodies, which I think is something we should look at, you are right that there might be some that it can't be done, but we need to just get some information. But there's certainly, I think, some, Angela sketched out some possible places for consolidation. And I hope that we will maybe not take it up fully today, but something I think we should talk about. Paul, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So I think you're right about that. Maybe there are some merging of tasks. I mean, we do need a local historic district commission by bylaw, and that's required by state law as well. But maybe the functions of the historical commission can be alike. But then we would have to change the bylaw because the historical commission has a role for demolition. So there's things that we could do. One of the practical things we do is for a couple of the committees, like Cultural Council and Public Art Commission and Local Historic District and Historical Commission, is Angela sort of merges them together because some people don't know what they're applying for, and they just like, I'm a history buff, I want to sign up for this. And then we bring in both chairs of each committee, and we all sit down and we all interview everybody, and the chairs sort of divide up who they want on their committee. We really trust the chairs a lot in the process in terms of how they want to form their committee. We trust our chair process. And I think that this goes for what people are, I think Andy talked about what kind of skill sets the chairs are looking for in their committees. So, but I think we try to interview them together, and we sort of coach, like, do you like doing architecture? Do you like doing, this? And some people, do you want to give away money like the cultural council, or do you oversee art? And people have come with different perspectives. But sometimes they can be persuaded, oh, we need more people on this committee than that. So Angela does a good job at sort of merging everything together and organizing the chairs, especially because they're usually busy people who are chairing committees, to be present as well.
So if I may, I don't see hands up at the moment. I'm sure that will change in any moment, but that's quite all right. I would like us to come back to focus for a few minutes more on the chance or opportunity we have to look at the sheer number of committees, the number of applicants required. So strategies that could be considered would be reducing the number of members in some of these bodies. Another is, as we've talked about a little bit already, consolidating committees where that might be feasible, and maybe there may not be many options. We certainly want to preserve bodies that are important to the community, but there might be ways that we could do some consolidation. I think at the very least I would like us to consider reducing the number of members in certain bodies where you have 9 or 7. Why couldn't that be 5? I'm just thinking of the sheer amount. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one at the beginning of the meeting who was just stunned by the sheer number of people that Angela and Paul have to work with every single year. It's basically it seems to fall on their 2 shoulders. We used to have 3 CPOs, now we have 1. Angela's a trooper. She will take on any task you give her, and she will carry it out. I think we'll never see the day where she will say to us, "This is just too much." That can actually be a vice, I think. And so I don't know about anyone else. I may be alone in this, but I am concerned about this sheer demand. And I think there's some practical things that can be done that would not interfere with the service that these many bodies perform. But this committee could take on over the next month or so, just to have a robust discussion and maybe make some suggestions. In the end, right, and so some of it would involve charges. We'd have to look at some charges, et cetera. So any of the things we could do, I think, that would perhaps be helpful. And the ultimate question to Paul and Angela is this helpful? Because if it isn't, we back away. The purpose here is, I think, in large part to try and assist them in getting some control over a process that seems at times just to be, it takes away the time for them for a job that they have to do as well. So they give great amount of time to it. They do it very well. I think the things we could do. So reducing the number of members, consolidating committees if possible. And then there are some bodies that should be sunsetted. And the question is, at least 4 identified. And how is that done? And what's the process for that? Are things that are on my mind right now. And I'd like us to talk about it for a few minutes before we reach the 1-hour mark. Andy and then Pam.
Right. I think Angela had her hand up too, but she might be pointing to the same thing, that on her list of reappointment season 2026, at the bottom, there's a bunch of bullet points under the heading possible combining of groups. So she's giving us some suggestions there in that area.
That is correct. Yes. And that's where I would start. We won't do it today, but if the committee is open to this and if it seems appropriate, that might be a place we could start in terms of focusing on consolidation. I think the other area where we could have a conversation and we could begin is looking at the number of committees in terms of membership. What could be reduced from 9 to 7 or from 7 to 5, just to reduce the sheer amount of appointments and numbers of people involved. Pam. You're muted, Pam.
Since these are in fact town manager appointments, it makes sense in a way to have the town manager and staff make some recommendations on what they feel are appropriate for consolidation. It occurs to me that the number of people on the board? I think that's a very good question. But is it the number of boards that actually drives the amount of work, or is it the actual number, is it two more people that you have to call? I'm thinking in general of staff time that it takes to support all these committees. And I see that there are a number of them that have multiple or dual liaisons. Dave Zomek's name comes up in a bunch of places. I think that's reduction of staff, support time, and number of committees is probably the driver. And if staff and town manager want to make some recommendations, perhaps on those committees that should officially be listed as defunct, that would be great. I don't know if that takes a vote of the council to acknowledge that. That's fine, and then it gets it off the books. Let's start to make that process clear. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I think if these are mostly committees that are to help the town manager and advisory to him, that the town manager should be able to sunset or recommend. And I guess that's my question. Does it have to go before the council if you want to sunset them? Because they're really advisory to you. It seems like actually that wouldn't have to go to the council.
Paul?
It really depends how they were created. If they're created by bylaw, then definitely the council has to change the bylaw. If they're created by, it depends how they're created. It depends how they're created. You just have to look at it because then you have to rewind it. However it was created, you have to go back the same path.
Yep.
So are
And
there
also,
any
I think,
committees?
pardon me. I think, I think that's enough for that.
There are currently 4 inactive committees that I'm aware of, and the first is the Agricultural Commission, the second is the Redevelopment Authority, the third is the Solar Bylaw Working Group, and the fourth is the Valley Green Energy Working Group. Now, working groups have time limits, and I assume both of the working groups have really exceeded that. So that may be a simple matter of simply removing it from the list. I don't think that would be but at the moment they're on the list, but they could easily be taken off. The Redevelopment Authority and the Agricultural Commission would require some research, and that again is something that we could assist the manager in this. We certainly could ask him, but again, what does that mean? It means basically he or Angela is going to have to do this work, so now we get even more work to them, but we do certainly need, if we are going to be helpful, we're going to need their advice or their suggestions. Angela's given us, actually, if anyone read the materials, you'll see there's a list of suggested consolidations, and we could start with that. And if we could be useful in this, we could begin to discuss whether we think these make sense, blah, blah, blah. So that already has been done from the manager's side of things. 2 working groups could easily, I think, without any problem, be removed. And then it leaves the Agricultural Commission and the Redevelopment Authority. And then it perhaps also then leaves any other suggestions that Paul or Angela might have for other committees they think we might consider sunsetting. I have a feeling there probably won't be any or won't be many, but at least 2 could be. We just have to figure out the process, and 2 working groups could be eliminated. I think the larger question, which I think we could be helpful with, would be looking at, I'm just looking at the list that I made up for myself about the number of members on committees, and the vast majority have 9 or 7. And I don't understand why, unless it's required by some kind of statute or whatever. And that may be the case for 1 or 2, like transportation and parking does have a large number of members, but that's because of the charge, fine. But there are a whole host of bodies here. The Council on Aging has 9. The Community Safety Social Justice has 7. The CPA Committee has 9. Again, that may be a function of the charge. Anyway, I think there's a place where we could look to reduce the number of members where it's appropriate, where it makes sense. And that's a discussion we could have if we're willing to put in the time. And we certainly would look for recommendations from the manager on that. All right, so I was looking at, so Jennifer, please, your hand is up.
No, I don't want to take up time. I was actually just wondering if there were any committees that the town manager had just formed to help him that are totally within his. That was just curiosity, so I don't want to take up any time with that. But no, I also just want to say to Angela that because Angela's such a wonderful person that you were wanted to maintain some of the committees and the size because it's really fulfilling to the members that are on that. So I just wanted to, and so
Well,
yeah, I would
have to
leave that
say,
up to Angela's judgment actually, because that was, if if that's something that the town also provides to its residents to be involved in, that they feel that they have purpose from that. I thought that was very sensitive to you to see that there was value in that alone, to not make
I
it.
think there is value in that. I don't have a problem with that, but why not 7 instead of 9, or why not 5? And the point is, these numbers add up in terms of just sheer amount of staff time and work. And I think one of the things that we should be considering in terms of we're the Town Services Committee, what is the burden we're putting on staff for a basic service? It's an important service. I absolutely agree in terms of all the reasons you just gave. But does that mean it has to be 9 or 7? I think there's a place here we could look carefully at some of these bodies and perhaps have some suggestions and thoughts, and we certainly want to hear what the manager thinks. And for many of them, it would require rewriting the charge. It wouldn't be much, but it would require that. And that's, again, something that we could help with. So I don't want to throw this all off onto the manager, but obviously we do need his input and advice. We've gotten, as I said, some from Angela already, which would allow us to proceed if we wish. So I think one of the questions I'd like us to be thinking about in the final few minutes of this hour is, are there areas in the discussion we've had today where you feel that we could continue to do some fruitful work on our end, while at the same time asking for guidance or advice or suggestions from the manager? Again, the goal here would be to try and, I haven't heard a lot about process. We've had one issue, again, that you may want to make some suggestions related to that. But my focus right now is just on the burden on staff and the sheer amount of staff time, and at least the chance we have to look at this holistically and see if there are things we could do to assist in that without, keeping people, still preserving the idea of lots of involvement and activity and fulfillment, but something that would give our staff some chance to attend to some of their other duties. And that's the thing. And as I said, we had 3 CPOs and now we have 1.
George, Angela's had her hand up for a few minutes.
Wow.
Okay. Angela, please go ahead.
So without any, honestly, I'm really lucky that I'm an extrovert and that this job completely suits my ability to be out in the public and want to connect with people. I will say that we have 2 CPOs. I mean, I count Samantha as a really good partner in community outreach, and she tables at events just alongside me and on her own many, many times. And she's great at connecting with people as well. So it's really enhanced my social life, and it's a part of the job that I love. And then the other thing I would say is, and take this with a grain of salt, because I mean, Council on Aging has 9 people because the demographic for Council on Aging is ages 55 to 105. So it's our second largest or third largest demographic in terms of population in Amherst. And the more voices we have at the table for that, probably the better. And I will also say, when I meet with the Residents Advisory Committee, Anastasia Ordonez, Jim Pistring, and Meg Gage, one of the things that always, always, always comes up for us is equity and inclusion. And it's also, we look at these boards and committees as an entree to town government. So we hope that someday these people who serve on boards and committees are learning about process, are learning about Robert's Rules of Order. Not everybody has been part of student council, right? So this is their way to kind of try it out, to not be in the public eye as much as the town council is, to see if they like getting their feet wet. And then we hope that someday they'll run for council. We hope that they'll say, this is a town that's doing great things. This is a town that values my opinion. This is a town that is moving forward. And I have tried out the ropes and I feel comfortable now, and now I'll run for town council. So I think when we looked at changing the CIF, I think when we meet as the Residents Advisory Committee, one of the things we're always going back to is like, are we seeing new names? Are we seeing new people? Are we engaging with people who moved to town recently? Are we finding new voices to bring to the table? And are we providing opportunities for people to kind of, without a super high stakes campaign with a campaign manager and a finance manager and lawn signs, are we getting people involved who will see value in becoming better residents of the town of Amherst? So that's kind of my spiel on, I see the need for reduction and I understand the need for reduction, but I think it needs to be carefully done.
Well, I'm all for carefully doing it. In fact, I try to do everything I do very, very carefully. And the question, I think, for you, Angela, and for Paul, and also I know Sam has been here and she's been quiet, which is fine. I don't want to make anybody speak if they don't want to, but she's on the front lines, as you just mentioned as well. But the question for staff is whether some attempt by this committee to take a holistic overall look. So you just given a good argument, for instance, where the Council on Aging perhaps should stay at 9. And do you think it would be useful for us? Do you want us to take the time to do this? Secondly, the committee needs to decide to look at the various options for trying to reduce some of the burden on staff and still maintain what I see as a very robust and very positive process. The RAC has been fantastic. Paul, Angela, Sam, you guys are doing a great job. And maybe the answer is everything's hunky-dory, leave us alone, we're fine. When I look at the numbers, I think, no, this is not good. And so that's my initial response. I don't know what my committee thinks. Paul, would you go ahead, please?
Yeah, I think it's a good exercise no matter what. It's important for us to, and it's part of the goals, so we will. I mean, we do have an advisory committee for Residents Advisory Committee who have highly experienced people who know the town well, who've been involved in all aspects of the town, who could give us really good insights into how which committees can be larger, smaller, no, not larger, smaller, or don't need to exist. So I think we would probably draw on them if Jim's willing to sort of work through that and then come back to you with, I think the counselors were asking for, make some recommendations, give us something to respond to. And I think we can help do that and give you it's not a lot of work, but it's just some, clear-eyed thinking. And I think it would benefit us, as you've all noted, that it might make us more efficient. So we're all open to all those things.
Okay. So we've had a very, I think, robust and full discussion. We've been all over the place, which is fine. I wanted that to happen. I had just to hear what people are thinking. But we have, I think, heard 3 possible strategies that could be applied to just the sheer number of people involved in this process, reducing the number of members in boards and committees, consolidating some, and sunsetting some. And so what I'm hearing from the committee, and I'm open to hearing other thoughts, is that we would like some guidance and suggestions from staff. We've already gotten some from Angela related to consolidation. Certainly RAC, Jim, they might have some thoughts about where they think committees' numbers could be reduced, if they think it's appropriate. And then we could take a look at that and discuss it, and also maybe take a look at charges where consolidation might be possible. And then we've also raised the issue of sunsetting, and that too, maybe some of that could be done behind the scenes, but there are at least 2 bodies that, if we are interested in sunsetting them, would require some research. So before we move on to the next item, I just want to sense from the committee that this is something that potentially could be on the next or a future agenda, depending on what we hear back from town staff. But my focus would be on these 3 areas and what we could do in terms of assisting the manager and in addressing this question of just the sheer demand on staff time. Any other thoughts about that, or anything else that you think from this discussion that you would like this committee to continue to focus on?
I'll say thank you to Angela for her impassioned speech, because I think that the thought has occurred to me numerous times that, in fact, given that we no longer have 200 plus people participating in town meeting, these committees are really one of the few ways to get people involved in an official way in the town of Amherst and its operations. So I'm not in a rush to cut the number of people. I am interested in thinking about the committees and the functionality of some of the committees that could relieve some pressure. But again, thank you, Angela and Sam, for really helping encourage people to get involved. And we all try to put it out there, but you're the ones, often talking to folks. So thanks.
Andy.
Yeah, I appreciate the efforts of the RAC as well. I've talked with Meg Gage some on what that role is like, and I think it sounds like a good group, and I'm sure their advice is very helpful. And I guess I would just look at this as a right sizing exercise, given the various interests of giving productive ways for residents to be involved, and making sure that where residents and staff are being involved, that it's actually serving a useful and aligned purpose with the government. So I think that's a good. I support that task if the staff are willing to take it on. I think it would be some clear thinking on this would be really helpful.
I see no other hands up. Is that, am I missing? Jennifer, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just also wanted to, again, thank Angela, because I've been copied on some correspondence that you're so responsive when applicants to committees will call, with follow-up questions, or, that you are very responsive and transparent, and I know that's really appreciated. And yeah, I know setting up the interviews is just hellacious. For CRC, we just finally decided, and this is also for Andy when you're doing it this year, to just schedule the interviews during our regular meetings, because it was impossible to schedule and find a different date for all the applicants and the members of CRC. So I don't know how you do it, Angela, but thank you.
Hey, we are not too far off of my schedule for what it's worth, so appreciate that. I'm going to give Angela and Jim and Sam the opportunity to quietly leave if they wish. They're certainly welcome to stay, but the next conversation is going to turn on our charge, which is still waiting to be approved by the council. But I'd like the committee, we agreed last time that we would talk about it and what role we see for TSO in the coming year, especially since transportation and parking have largely, if not exclusively, been taken off our plate. I wanted to have that discussion. I asked you all to take a look at the committee charge, and I'm going to turn to that in just a moment. But are we okay so far in terms of the agenda? I will be in contact. We'll talk about this at the end of the meeting as well, but I will be in further contact, obviously, with the manager and with staff to see what might be appropriate for a future, maybe even a next meeting in terms of the issue we've just been discussing. Because I do get a sense that there is interest in the committee in pursuing this, but they are also looking for suggestions and guidance from staff in order to proceed. Okay, all right. Angela, thank you very much. Sam, thank you. Paul, if you want to stay, you're certainly welcome. But what we're going to do now is turn to the issue of our charge. And I'd like to talk a little bit, I'd like us to talk a little bit about what we see as our role going forward. Pam, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I don't see the charge in our packet.
It's in the previous packet, I think.
Well,
Sorry,
Okay.
as you can see, there are a lot of things in the packet, and but if you want, I can put it up on the screen if you'd like to read it. I have it pretty much memorized by now, but let me see if I
Well,
can
I'm
turn.
actually going back to meeting packets 0205. And this is via the Document Center, Town of Amherst, which is right now the only way I can get in.
All
And
right.
there is nothing in the 2025 folder.
Wow. Can anyone see the charge besides me on the screen?
Yep.
Is
Yeah.
it taking up the whole screen, or is your screen a big mess?
That's okay.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, I've got some bunch of stuff there, as you can imagine. Let me see if does that make it any better? Is that visible to everybody in a clear way?
If I squint.
Should you like it larger? Okay.
George, I just wanted to mention, I'll be logging off. We have a budget hearing in a couple minutes, so I'm gonna go to
Okay,
that.
Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. Oh, wrong way. Sorry. I don't understand in and out. All right. How's that? Is that any better? I'm not hearing anything. So does that mean I can't look and hear at
That
the
is
same time?
better. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's better.
Appreciate human voice is helpful here, waving
I
hands.
just, and
Yes,
are
please, go
these,
ahead.
are the edits yours, George?
There's a problem with this. I'm sorry. This was done at GOL. It was approved by GOL. I had originally presented to GOL a clean copy. I have no idea where that went. I'm not the chair of GOL. I'm not responsible for what happens to stuff on GOL once we approve it. So I just dug this out. So the edits are what happened when TSO had the initial conversation before this body was inaugurated. And essentially what it shows you is, and I will just take you through it one more time, what TSO recommended and what GOL approved is adding this phrase referred by the town council. The initial suggestion was to take this out completely because obviously TPC is now created, and what job do we have to do here? The argument was made and was accepted by the members of the committee at the time that we don't want to tie the hands of the council. It's possible that something could come along where they felt that this would be appropriate for TSO to take up, even though it involves transportation and parking. And so we left it in with the proviso that referred by the town council. The assumption is that the vast majority, if not all things related to transportation and parking, will be handled by TPC. But so that's the change here. We eventually decided to keep it in, but add this phrase. The other change was to remove advise and make recommendations to the town council regarding town council participation in community events. It was felt that we had never done that, and it was hard to see that we would be doing it, and so that was removed. But everything else was left the same. And of course, the final bullet point here, recommendations to the town council on measures may include consultation with the town attorney, was a change made to all of these charges, not just to TSO. So those are the changes. I think I've described it accurately. I think you were there when we did it, but I think no one else was. So it was the two of us who were involved. And then this went to GOL, and GOL approved it, and it will go before the council on Monday. And the assumption is that they will approve it. If they don't, then I guess we'll go back to square one. But based on this charge as it stands, the question is, what are things? So let me just, actually, let me show you two things. Under town services, it says, review and make recommendations to the town council on measures that may affect the provision of services to the community by a town department. Okay. And the second thing I want to highlight is under outreach and community relations.
Jennifer raised her hand, George.
I see your hand, yes.
Oh, okay.
I'll get to Jennifer in just a moment. And the other item I'd like to highlight is bullet point 3 under outreach and community relations. Review and make recommendations to the town council on issues and measures regarding the relationship between the town and Amherst institutions of higher education. So these are the two items that I particularly stand out to me. I note that the first one under town services only says measures. And that's concerning to me because of things I'd like to do. But anyway, Jennifer, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I say I agree with you that those stand out to me also as really important for this committee. So I wanted to ask if we wanted to sort of, I don't know if we want to walk through like how this plays out. So under town services, the first one, review and make recommendations on measures that may affect the provision of services. So like the proposed waste hauler bylaw
Right.
is in this committee. So as that moves along, so this committee would have public forums or be involved in coordinating the outreach to the community to get feedback. And so how would you see that playing out?
I think that once the RFP is issued, it would come back to this committee for much further discussion and decision about what the actual bylaw would look like. Someone has to create a bylaw or revise the bylaw, and that would be this committee. And so it definitely would be coming back to us for discussion, and we would have the first discussion would be based on what the consultants have given us. Does this seem like a viable, is this something that we want to do? Does this make sense? Does it make sense from a whole host of reasons? I think there are a lot of questions that we had that we need answered. One of them has to do with cost, a whole host of issues related to this potential measure that we're looking for answers on. We're also looking for a sense of how it would be structured. What are some of the, what's going to be the best practices? But it would come to us then to look at that and shape it into a bylaw that then would go back to the council for the council's review.
Right. At what point would we do community outreach?
I think that can happen, as soon as we have something actually concrete to share with the community. Right now, we have nothing to share with them. If they came to us, we wouldn't know what to say. We don't know. Transfer station can stay open? No idea. How much is going to, first question people are going to ask is, how much is it going to cost me? We have no idea.
Right.
Right.
But this committee would do the community outreach when it's appropriate.
We certainly could do that. I think that would certainly be open to that. Also, we might do some council-wide public meetings, given that this would be something that I think would be of general interest across the town. It might be somewhat controversial. In addition to our meetings through TSO, there might be a public meeting such as we had. The one I think of is for East Gables, right? There was a huge public meeting that we had. So there are various possible fora. Certainly, this committee would be one of them for sure. We'd sponsor them, and we would certainly be actively engaged in making sure they took place. Andy.
If could you scroll down to the outreach part of the charge?
Sure.
So then, just in terms of matters that broaden participation and ensure regular and transparent communication and outreach, work with the communication participation officer. I'm wondering if I could share a section from the charter review report, which talks about these issues, and it might be an area that we should be addressing at some point.
Please.
Can I share what
you want me to take this down? You want to put something up? Sure, I can.
Yeah, if I could.
Stop sharing. I'll stop sharing, Andy. And why don't you can share, I hope?
I just sent you a request, I guess.
Ouch. Oh, oh God. That means I have to do
something.
something.
I need to be a co-host. Yeah.
Okay.
You should be able to share now.
Thank you, Athena.
So, are you seeing?
Yes, we are. That's good.
Beyond the charter, improving Amherst government.
Yep.
So this is the section after the 22 specific things that we've been talking about in the council. And there are two sections to it. One is structural changes, which are sort of big things that, could be talked about. But then there's public engagement issues. And those include making clear the various ways residents can participate in the town's governance and weigh in on government decisions. Revisiting the practice of public comment and how to make it less frustrating. Clarifying the application process for boards and committees. Education and information for the public on what it takes to run the town, like the recent Civic Academy. Greater level of detail in budget documents. Improve the ability to find information on the town website. notification of district meetings, and then, robust community participation officer. So those all seem like things that are relevant to outreach and the kinds of discussions that we've started having here. And I just want to, at some point, I guess we'll be discussing them with the full council, but some of them might be things that we could, that could be situated here. And there was some, those came about through, public input that we got. So.
Good. So what I'm hearing, Andy, is that this could be used to structure a future conversation, discussion by this committee, either with or without the council's formal approval, since it's something that has already is out in the public domain in terms of concerns that residents have raised, and certainly touch on what this committee deals with in a very clear way. So we could use some of this to structure a conversation. Andy?
Yeah, and as the council, tries to figure out what to do with the rest of this report, some of this might be legitimately in our bailiwick. So it could be referred to us.
Okay. Pam?
I'm looking at the second bullet, which is work with community from the charge. Work with the community participation officers to engage the community. Having just heard Angela's discussion about the work that's involved in committee organization, I'm not sure, frankly, how much more this committee can do or should do to somehow lean on the community participation officer. This is kind of a how to do it, not a what you want accomplished. It's almost a directive rather than it feels out of place. Let's just put it that way in this lineup. It's like telling us how to do outreach rather than what we want accomplished.
Well, I guess all I could say is the purpose or the goal here is engagement. That we're working with the CPOs, and here I would include Samantha Giffen. One thought I had was that while today she was, we could actually ask her to come formally and talk about. I'd like to hear more about the Civic Academy. Just informational in terms of what the future for that is. What we as counselors or what we as a committee can do, if anything. The answer might be, don't worry, we've got it covered. But is there a future for that? Is it a matter of money, time, staff? But that is something. And then I think we did want to have a conversation about the website and about how that functions and how, issues people have with that. And I thought that was also an appropriate conversation that we could have. So I was toying with the idea, or I'm throwing out the idea of inviting her at some point, given Paul's permission, to have this discussion, which would include, the Civic Academy, the town website, and this whole idea of what the town, just for informational purposes. We learn more from this, and then we also might have some suggestions. So I would put that under that bullet point, those kinds of conversations. But the key is engagement. So we spent a few minutes already talking about outreach and community relations. No one's talked about the university and Amherst College, but according to this charge, it is very explicit that recommendations to town council on issues and measures. So there are a whole host of issues that we could all think of related to town gown. And it would seem to me this is the town gown committee. Paul may not like that, or maybe the folks at Amherst College or UMass, but according to the charge, if the committee is so inclined and it makes sense, this is a place where some of these conversations could be had. The idea being it's an opportunity for us to hear from the gown side of town, and for us to ask questions and et cetera. So I just throw that out there as under outreach and community relations. And that got a whole bunch of hands up. Interesting. Okay.
Sure did.
It sure did.
So my response to that is it's great to see this charge, um, this bullet under the charge. I know that Paul has been extremely explicit with me that I am not to go talk to people whom I know at the university about issues between Amherst and UMass, for instance. So to encourage this committee to hold conversations, I think would be great. It it goes without saying that it would certainly require Paul's buy-in. I would like to have the council hear from the chancellor of the university, hear from the president of the colleges annually. Here's what's happening. Here's how we're contributing to your community, et cetera, et cetera. Is this the committee that makes a motion that we ask these people to attend a council meeting? I mean, we could certainly develop some motions. That would be great.
Jennifer.
Yeah, I just want to echo Pam. I totally agree with that. The president of Princeton meets with the Princeton City Council every year to discuss how they can work together. So, yeah, whether we invite people to this committee or I would say that is a priority to address how we can make town gown, and I would say council gown conversations happen. I would think if that's in our charge, that would be a priority for this committee. And I know we can't have subcommittees, but maybe we have a council meeting. I mean, an agenda for this committee that's dedicated to that. I mean, we'd have to plan for it.
Andy?
Yeah, I was on that topic. I would assume maybe if as agreements are being negotiated, we would somehow be involved in commenting on them. I don't know how that would work. I assume they're confidential
luck.
until they're finished. So
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
but then to review them when they're brought forward, maybe we have the first crack at it before it goes to the council. I don't know. And then, yeah, I think it would be great to hear from each of the campuses. I think it would be very interesting to hear from Hampshire what they're looking at going forward, as well as obviously UMass and Amherst. I think Amherst has. I just, we might be the ones who organize and invite, but I would think the full council would want to hear from them. So
yeah,
I wouldn't think we'd invite them to this committee. So
yeah.
All right.
George,
Yes, go ahead.
you made a comment about the 1, 2, 3rd bullet about issues and measures.
Yep.
Maybe if the word issues and measures could also be applied to the very first bullet, which is review and make recommendations to town council on issues and measures that may affect, or issues and measures. I mean,
I agree with you,
probably-
and that's and Athena can weigh in here if she wishes, but it doesn't say that. And I was about to turn the conversation to some of the things that I've raised before on this body, before all of you were on it, and I'd like to talk again. But I do note that the charge, as it relates to town services, at the moment, it speaks only of measures, and I could certainly use some enlightenment from those who understand this sort of thing better than I do, but that would seem to perhaps at least call into question some of the things that I have in mind. So let me just throw out a few things. I've mentioned this before. When we think about town services, think about senior services, questions we might have about what's being offered, about we have reports. We have the Age and Dementia Friendly Amherst report. I have suggested that this might be the appropriate place, again with Paul's permission, to invite the Director of Senior Services for us to have a conversation about the programs, about the report, how that's being instituted, transportation, Silver Shuttle, at blah blah blah. So that's one area. Recreation is a second. So there are these areas that we have which are essential to our residents that involve basic services, where it would seem this would be an appropriate place for this committee to talk to and learn from and to question department heads about issues that we see. And that was the other thing. So we talked about outreach and community relations. We talked about the university. This topic is one that I've also felt that we could be more proactive in, but the way the charge is written gives me pause. But perhaps the first thing is whether anyone else on the committee besides me thinks that this is something that this committee should be at least exploring. I mentioned
senior services or recreation?
All of the above, Andy. So take recreation. One of the issues that we've faced constantly is the maintenance and care of our fields. And so I have dreamed, as others have in the past, that there be a field czar, or there be some entity or some individual, obviously some individual, ideally, who would be responsible for overseeing the maintenance and care of all the fields. And that seems to just fall into a black hole. So what if this committee were to ask the rec director to come, and maybe one or two other parties? Part of the problem is that there are multiple parties involved. You have the schools, you have the rec department, you have DPW, right? And so it seems to me this is really an important issue. It's not a top button issue, but it's one that's persistent. So that's what I have in mind with recreation. Inspection services, DPW. What do I hear from after a storm constantly? Sidewalks, clearing sidewalks. Enforcement of town bylaw 3.40. That's an item. Basic service. I can't walk up Amity Street. Okay. Good. Athena, her hand is up.
Hi, thanks. I'm just curious, what type of recommendation the committee would be making to the council in asking for this information. And I mean, the information would have to be requested through the town manager. The committee can't demand that town staff come and appear before it. So it would be a request through the town manager, but I'm curious what you're thinking the committee could recommend that the council could act on, because a lot of what you're bringing up is the executive responsibility, and this committee isn't tasked with overseeing the executive.
I think that if I may respond first, and then I hear from others. We're responding to things we hear from our constituents about services. And we're the services committee. And so it seems there is a role for us, however complicated it may be. And it certainly has to be done with full respect for the manager's authority and prerogatives. But we also have issues that our constituents raise with us that we would like to get clarity on and the council cannot handle that. Right? It's already got its hands full.
So
that's why we create
suggesting
subcommittees. Yeah, right.
Are you suggesting that this committee be a venue for residents to come and raise concerns about town services?
It certainly could be. I mean, given what's on the agenda, if people are free at 10 a.m. on a Thursday, and sufficient notice is out there, and it's something they care about, and they would certainly have the opportunity through public comment to come and speak. If we're talking about senior services, if we're talking about sidewalks, if we're talking about recreation fields, we would certainly welcome their input. We'd like to hear what they think. We'd like to hear. Maybe they would all come in and say, the fields are doing great. Well, there's no problem. Maybe they'd come in and say, look, we only get 2 snowstorms a year. So it's not a problem. That's not what I'm hearing, but so yes, this would be a venue for people to come and speak, and also an opportunity for us to get clarity. We have an incredible town staff that does incredible work. So it's not a place for us to put them under the microscope. But I think it seems to me, this would be a committee where some of these conversations and could take place, including the ability of the community to speak up if they wish, a chance for them to come and say, well, we're going to be talking about this next Thursday. And written comments are perfectly welcome as well. People don't have to be here at 10 a.m. We read those and treat them as seriously as someone who comes at 10 a.m. So written comments gives us some sense of what people are thinking. So yes, I think that's my sense. My belief would be, or my thought would be that the chair would reach out to the manager and say, this is a topic that the committee would like to explore further. It would involve the presence of a department head. Obviously, you are in control of their schedule and you're sensitive to the demands of their time. But this is something the committee has agreed they'd like to learn more about and they have some questions about, and try to arrange something along that line, like we're doing right now with boards and committees. Pam.
Thank you. That was such an extensive response. I'm sure it covered my question. I was going to simply say to Athena that it feels that this committee would be an appropriate sounding board for issues with town services. We hear it in our districts, as of course you do, George. But knowing that there might be a committee that could call in a couple of groups if we raise a topic for a somewhat in-depth conversation, I think that's certainly within the purview of this committee without trying to overstep the town manager's responsibilities.
And just thinking through, I hear and understand what you're saying about using the committee's time as a venue to get some feedback from residents about town services. What then could the committee do with it, with that feedback? So is the intent here to hear that feedback from community members and then make some recommendation for the council to act in a particular way? I think that, my thought here is that it can be frustrating for community members to come and speak on something, to spend their valuable time coming to a meeting and speaking on an issue, and then not being able to see that go anywhere. And if community members come to the committee and speak on an issue that they're having a problem with in town, and then the committee doesn't have any, or the council doesn't have any authority to do anything about that, that can feel very frustrating to community members, and we've heard that in the past. So, for example, George, your idea of a field maintenance czar, the council can't establish that position. So would something like that be a recommendation to put it in the budget guidelines for the finance committee or the council to put it in the budget guidelines that you want to establish a committee or a position like that? I mean, a lot of those, that type of decision is the town managers. So I'm trying to think through, the next steps of creating a forum like this so that members of the community who have concerns not only feel heard, but feel that their concerns and their issues are being addressed. Because if there's nothing the committee can or the council can do with that, then yeah, Pam.
Well, that feels a little awkward to me that of course we could make a recommendation that X and Y be considered in the development of, staffing, or X or Y be considered, given what we've heard from the community as being an issue of note. Otherwise, people are forced to write a note to the town manager, write a note to their district reps. You know, there is no point of contact really. If I'm sort of making this as a parallel with the transportation committee, that was a huge thing to actually have a point of contact for raising traffic and sidewalk and traffic safety issues and give folks a place to come with their concerns. What action this committee might take could be in various forms. It could be something that finally gets incorporated into a town manager goal. It could be a recommendation to create a bylaw. I mean, I'm going
Mhm.
far afield here, but yeah, why would we not take on that responsibility if this is the venue for town services, right?
Andy,
Yeah, I kind of feel like you know, a legislative body has an oversight responsibility in some ways, even if we can't. I mean, we can certainly set, you know, establish bylaws, but we can also provide a place for people to be heard and for people and for you know, periodic, not exhaustive, not intrusive, but periodic you know, checking in on what are we hearing from the public, and even if it's just that here's what we're hearing from the public and giving people a venue for submitting to that to us about whether it's senior citizens or whether it's, you know, recreation or whatever. You know, it might not rise to the level of you know, of a particular legislation, but it gives people a vehicle for feeling like they're being heard, and if there's enough people, you know, saying the same things, then that identifies an issue that either staff or the legislative body needs to address. So you know, I understand there might be some concerns about staff time being, you know, we're going to have the DPW guy in here again talking about stuff, and then you don't have anything to do about it. So don't waste their time. But you know, giving people a chance to be heard about the services they're receiving, I think is, you know, in a targeted way, I think it's a useful role.
Jennifer.
Yeah, just to, you know, add, I agree with everything that Pam and Andy have said, but we've, you know, I think in the last council session, we did discuss, you know, what is this? We have outreach in the title of this committee, and what are we really doing for outreach? We wait for people to come to us. You know, I'm thinking of like the roundabouts on Heatherstone, but what are we doing to actually reach out and invite input? So I think that's what you know, this is what this conversation's about. We don't want to overstep, you know, go out of our lane, but we are the town services and outreach. So, and we have not really, I don't think, proactively done the outreach part of in this committee.
So we're getting near the 12 o'clock magic time, and we've had, I think, beginnings of a good conversation. What I'm hearing from my colleagues, if I may summarize, is that there's an importance in terms of the citizens being heard. I think there's also a place for us and for the citizens and for the town staff to be educated. We can learn a lot from hearing staff about what they're doing and also the challenges they face. And they can learn a fair amount from hearing from us from terms of our constituents and their concerns. And then I think we do have a place where we could then make recommendations or at least report back to the council. And the other, what is it, 8, can't do math with 13, the other 8 counselors would be educated a little bit about some of the issues we're hearing and some of the challenges. So I think there's a lot that can be done here. I need some guidance in the last few minutes as to where you want to go as a committee. I'm hearing some interest in pursuing the communication side of things. in more detail. I'm also interested in whether you want, I've mentioned senior services, I've mentioned recreation, I've mentioned sidewalks. There are other issues that could be raised. Are there areas there that you think we should be looking at? So quickly, but let's try to go through this. Start with Pam, and then Andy, then Jennifer.
I think the three that you just mentioned are good starting points. I was going to talk about future agenda items and just general comments. So
Let's
I'll
go to
stop.
that. Let's go to
I'll
that
let,
actually. Yeah, and then they'll say what they
okay,
want to
so
say.
both
Go
ways.
ahead.
So a suggestion in the agenda is that for number three, instead of jumping right into, the meat of the meeting, is that maybe item three becomes sort of a standing slot for any appointment discussions, because that was not on the agenda and yet we talked about it in the meeting. So theoretically, we shouldn't have talked about it. So
Just a correction, Pam. I'm afraid you probably saw a draft of the agenda.
whatever.
Yeah,
I'm just
so
making
yeah,
a comment.
no,
Okay.
but in fact, it was on the official agenda. But
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
The second item is just to make sure that our meeting calendar says that all meetings begin at 10 a.m. And I'm sure that was corrected, but I haven't seen the corrected version yet instead of 1 p.m. So those are
That,
just
yeah, and that
two,
raises a very, very good point, if you don't mind. I don't know where the revised, I thought we made changes to the calendar last time.
I'll send
And
out the final calendar that you voted.
okay, thank you. But I do believe we did make some changes, and so we'll get a revised calendar, and that will be sent to everybody, and also will be on the website. Thank you, Athena. Andy.
I'm wondering if sidewalks would be more in the bailiwick of the new committee that was just created. So I'm not sure we need to take that up, but I think it would be worthwhile identifying, a set of services that we would invite public input on via written or participation, and we could sort of think about how to schedule those. And then the other piece, again, I think is the sort of communication outreach pieces of the charter.
Mhm.
Review report. Some of those are pretty meaty, I think, and some of them are already happening. I know there's work being done on the website, so it'd be good to, I don't know that we need to get deeply involved into it, but it'd be good to hear, what's happening and anyway. So we may just need to wait for the council to delegate some of those to us, but I think some of them would rightly come to us. So.
Okay. Jennifer.
Yeah, I don't want to lose the town gown conversation that we started to have.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Be important.
As far as future agenda items, that's something that definitely I'm intrigued by taking what Andy has given to us and pointed to us to, and maybe shaping that into a item for the next agenda, broadly speaking, and inviting Sam to come and speak about the website. And again, assuming that Paul is willing and that it fits her schedule, that we could talk about communications, website, and fold that into the larger discussion of what's in the charter as part of our conversation about outreach. And I would like us to, again, come back to the question of trying to address the large number of appointments. And I would reach out to the manager and to Angela and see if I can get some recommendations. And I would put that as an agenda item as well, assuming that I get input from them that's sufficient. And anything else that people have? Pam, you have your hand up, please. As far as future agenda? No? Did you have something for other, you want, go ahead, please speak to that.
Yeah, I just was trying to double check if Athena is our what do you call it, our liaison. Are you
That's
the
correct.
staff liaison for this committee, since I'm new to this committee?
No, Paul is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip the minutes because they were only presented at the last minute, and I think we'll leave them for the next meeting. The one issue that I did have concern about has already been raised related to the calendar. But I think I'm going to wait on that. It's 12:01, and so I'm going to hold that off to the next meeting if that's all right. I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at them. I glanced at them briefly, but I haven't really looked at them. So I will reach out to Councilor Lord and work with her to shape an agenda for next time. I'll send you all a draft. But what I'm hearing at the moment is continuing to pursue the conversation we had earlier related to boards and committees, shaping something related to the charter recommendations for outreach, and seeing if we could get Samantha Giffen to come and talk about the website. And those are the two that are standing out in my mind. Pam?
One last item. In terms of the meeting minutes, it's wonderful that we have them. Athena, is there some way that we could have, like we do with CRC, just a space on here somewhere that says that they were approved on a particular date? It's about the only way that it can be tracked.
Sure.
Thank you. Just sort of standard operating procedure. Thank you.
All right, I have no items not anticipated, and I have at least some sense of where you'd like to go next time. Feel free to reach out if you have further thoughts about what should be on the agenda, but I will be getting you a draft of that soon. I'm going to be writing a report for this meeting as soon as we get off the meeting. Pam?
George, your extensive report for town council was more like meeting minutes. It's like we should just adopt your
I don't know
your
how to
memo
find
to
the
town
balance.
council.
I know, I don't know how to find the balance. Maybe Athena and I will have a conversation. We're going to have a meeting of boards and excuse me, of chairs and vice chairs
Yeah,
coming up soon, and that conversation will certainly.
because I certainly am not going to put that kind of a memo together for town council every time we have a CRC meeting.
No, that's
Just not going to happen.
That's all right. It's not.
You
It's just
set
what
a high bar.
I can't help myself, and if nobody reads it, then that's the other problem. So that's Okay, so that's where we're at. I'm gonna seek a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn the meeting at
Is there a second?
12:03.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. Pam,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
the chair is an aye, and Councilor Lord, as she said, is no longer with us. So the vote is 4-0 with one absent. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you all on Monday.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
George.
Bye-bye.
Bye.